All right, let's see. We're live. Let me just check YouTube and Instagram. Perfect. All right. I just saw this deal where a buyer backed out. Insane sub-2 deal. All right. Ultra rare sub-2 hybrid duplex in the heart of Miami for assignment. This is the off-market duplex. 7031 Northwest 6th Court, Miami, Florida, 33150. All right. 1,008 square feet. 1 bed, 1 bath. No HOAs. This is a 90 grand entry fee with a 4.75% interest rate. The PITI is 3326.26. So I'm going to remember that one. And then, I wonder if this is inclusive of the seller finance piece. So there's a seller finance note for $102,000, but there's no payment until 5 years from now with an automatic 12-month extension. Okay, that's kind of cool. Just make sure you understand like whose appraiser are you using, blah blah blah, to make it work. So let's see, no banks needed. All right, so let's go ahead and analyze this deal. So based off of this, let me look up first and foremost what is the condition of the property. Looks like one of them is renovated. This must be a unit that's renovated. The other one is not renovated, I'm assuming, based on the description right here. Redfin, estimate 500 grand. Very nice duplex, 2 meters, 2 apartments, 1 bed, 1 bath each. So renting in areas around 1,500. This was in 2022. All right. So this is, what county is this in? So Miami-Dade County. So the first thing I want to do is I want to Google HUD FMR. I want to look for rent ceilings here. Access smart area FMR. Look at 24 FR, Miami-Dade County. All right, what zip code are we in? We are in 33150. 33150. Let's note this down. A 1 bedroom here for 33150 is 1,400. 33150. 1,400. Let's note that down. 1,400. And this is a duplex, so I'm assuming there's no other way to add an additional bedroom. So I'm only gonna get the rents for 33150 for a 1 bedroom. So both 1 bed, 1 bath. So I'm gonna get the rents for a 1 bedroom and see what they result in. So when I get the market rent for affordablehousing.com, I go to the owner section, go to the market rent estimator, plug in the address, plug in a bedroom count, click get estimate. You're gonna see that 25 units within a 0.53 mile radius is renting out for $19.10. All right. 0.5. That's pretty good. And it's renting out for $19.10. All right. That's Miami prices, I guess. 1604 is a zip. 2439 is a county. And 2188 is a city. 2188. All right. So now that I have these numbers here, this doesn't look very appealing, right? So what I then did was I Googled Miami-Dade Housing Authority. Let's see where we are. So the first thing I did was I looked at the 2024 payment standards. And the reason I want to do this is because Miami is such a big city. I'm going to assume that they know that they are going to adjust upwards. Aha, there we go. So if you guys remember correctly, oftentimes we talk about how if you ever want to research a specific area, specific city a little bit more, then you have to look up the payment standards, because here's a really good example. In Miami, the payment standard is 110% of the FMR. So they're saying the FMR is 1884. This is Miami-Dade County. So it's at the county level. All right, 1884. That's still below the 1910. And then the payment standard is 2072. So this is a scenario where the payment standard, let me write that down, is actually higher at 2072. And I trust this one more than HUD FMR because this was a memo that was published on November 28, 2023. Okay, now we're on to something. 2072 per unit. So I'm going to assume that 2072, I'm going to get the 1910 rents because that's below that. But just for those that are not aware of what the payment standards are, payment standards also includes utilities. Moderate rehab payment standard. I think that's for multifamily, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So if it's utilities and you don't provide utilities, you have to look up the schedule of utility allowances. And you can do that just by looking at like utility allowances by the county. So usually they break it out by duplexes. So this property is not a single family home, it's a duplex, and this is for 2 to 4 units. So if you don't provide heating, whatever that is, you got to subtract $1. Okay, equals this. I'm going to boom this over so you guys can see all these numbers. That minus 1, because there's no heating for gas, minus, I'm taking the most expensive one. Let's just call it electric, minus $7 for electric for cooking, minus $19 for electric water heating, minus $23 for water if you don't include water, minus $29 for the sewer if you don't include sewer, minus $9. I think you have a range in the pictures based on what I saw. Minus 13, you don't provide a refrigerator. Minus 18 if you don't provide gas. Minus 42, you don't provide trash. I think that's pretty much it. So when you subtract all of that, what did you get? Boom. Surprisingly, 1920. Oh, that worked out really well. So I'm going to use 1910, 1920 as my fair market for my rent per unit, right? So I'm going to equals 1910 times 2 because there's 2 units, each 1 bedroom. So I would be getting about 3820. Does that line up with what the wholesaler said? The wholesaler says 4,000. So I'm a little below that. So that's okay. I'm gonna take that as is because I think I'm being conservative. All right. So what's my purchase price? So the purchase price is going to be $575,024. $575,024. And we're going to have roughly, let's see, 1,000 square feet. So I'm assuming the other property just needs to get painted at the very minimum. I'm assuming one of them is in pretty good condition. So I got $1,500 for the roof just in case to make sure it works. I'm not painting an exterior. $500 to clean up the landscaping for this property. I got 1,008 square feet of painting, $3 a square foot. I'm going to assume that only half the flooring needs to get replaced. So 1,008 divided by 2, $8 a square foot. That's a pretty cheap rehab, all in considering. Maybe I replace one of the toilets. But for the most part, that's pretty much all I need to do for this property. That equals to roughly about 11 grand. Okay, that's not bad at all. All right. Now that I got my rehab number, I got my rent number. Now I got to plug in my subto loan details, the loan that I'm taking over subject to. All right. So for this property, let's plug in some numbers here. And for those of you that are watching on Instagram, definitely check out on YouTube where we can have on a full screen so you can see more things going on at the same time. All right. Outstanding mortgage, 383,024. 383,024. Seller finance, $102,000. No interest, no payments. 5-year balloon. It has to appreciate 125 grand by then. It's going to be a little bit hard, but hey, who knows, right? Who knows? It's 5 years. What's the interest rate? 4.75% on the prime loan. I don't really care about when it started because I'm just going to plug in the total payment of 3326.26 equals 3326.26 minus subto principal minus subto interest minus the payment amount. But I gotta write that there's no payments for no years. There's no payments, so I'm gonna zero that out just so you guys can see it on the live stream on how I did that. No payments. Yeah, I'm gonna just zero all these out. This way the payments don't come in here. All right. So now that I have those numbers in here, I'm gonna assume that something happened with the deal where they backed out. I'm gonna assume that the insurance number is a lot higher than back. Just because you're in Miami, you're really close to the natural disasters or all those hurricanes hitting Miami almost every single year. I'm going to put in at least an extra $50 over insurance, because who knows, I might even be light. But I would not ever recommend closing on these deals before you get an insurance estimate, especially in Florida or Texas or any of the coastal regions. Now, personally, I'm not investing in Florida because of that reason. If you believe in climate change, I don't really care what your position on that is. I just see the serious storms, and I see that the storms are causing insurance to go up. You can just be very objective about it. Doesn't matter what you believe in. All right, so I'm assuming insurance is going to keep going up. So I'm going to add extra $50 a month for insurance at the minimum. I got 10% set aside for maintenance. I got 10% set aside for property management. I'll probably put this at a 5% vacancy just to be safe. Now, assuming all these expenses hold, based on what you have bought this property for, let me put in the $90,000 of entry fee, $90K, and that includes an assignment, I'm assuming. Yep, that probably does. Okay, I got 2.5% for. I'm gonna blow this to 2% because this way it lowers it just by a little bit. I got $11,000 of renovation. So, assuming you have 2 duplexes, how much would you cash flow on this property? You would 1x2, so two duplexes, 3820. That's your rent, right? We calculated based on the housing authority, so there's no higher amount. And our cash flow per month is going to be negative 511, and that's the cash on cash return of negative 5.43. Now, if you believe that Miami is a appreciating market and you think it's going to make a lot of money, I mean, if you don't have maintenance and you don't have any issues, I mean, you could take out $400 right for maintenance, right? But I don't recommend it because I don't believe that money belongs to you, right? If a storm ever hits the area and all of a sudden your roof gets damaged and you have to get it replaced, you don't want to be out of luck. You don't want to be in a position where you did not put enough money aside to cover these unforeseen but expected expenses eventually down the road. Because eventually a roof needs to get replaced, a HVAC needs to get replaced, the water heater needs to get replaced, all these stuff. So for me, this is not a deal, although this was really close, right? If you thought about the deal and you saw it and you read it, you're like, hey, this was 33.26, but then the LTR was $4,000. So you thought you had no spread in there. But after we got the rent correctly here at 38.20, and you subtract some expenses for maintenance, property management, let's say you even go to 8%. Whoops, 0.08. You're still losing money, even if you try to make it a little bit cheaper. So that's why this is not a deal for me personally. And personally, I don't invest in Florida, but sometimes I like to underwrite the deals here just so that people are aware of what makes a deal a deal. 2, be aware that insurance in Florida is costing a lot. And there's tons of insurance companies that are leaving Florida for a very specific reason, because they're not profitable there. So if they're not profitable, they're going to leave, and that's going to only continue driving insurance premiums up and up until the state has come up with a better solution, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be an affordable solution. So when you have all these expenses set aside, this was a deal that, even though it's a duplex, this was not a deal because you're losing $400 a month. Now, if for some reason you think it's going to grow up by 125 grand in 6 years, maybe you can swallow it. Maybe the rents will keep going up next year. But I'm not banking on rent appreciation. I'm also not banking on price appreciation for the next 1, 2, 3 years. This just seems a little bit speculative. So that's it. That's what I want to go over with all of you today. This was a subto deal in Miami. This is the first time I probably analyzed anything in Miami, but just remember what we saw. We got to the level of granularity by picking up the county. We looked at the FMR, which was well under what we said. And just like we talked about before, if you ever think that this is close to being a deal, look up your city or your county's housing authority. Find out what their payment standards are, because sometimes they might make adjustments, just like what Miami did here, by adjusting upwards to 110% of the FMR. Now, based off of that, then you can make your rent assumptions. And then you can plug in all your numbers for expenses, your renovations, and also your financing options, which in this case was a subject to hybrid deal, which means that you're taking over the existing loan subject to the existing financing, but at the same time, you are also getting a a seller finance piece for the equity portion that they don't want to get cash out for at least 5 years. And they agreed to no payments for 5 years because they wanted to make sure that the investors can still cash flow. Unfortunately, that's just not a deal for us, and that's okay, right? We didn't even have to look up the crime score, but looked at tophap.com. This was what was this price? This was 135, so a little bit high on the crime score. It might just be because it's Miami. It's lots of population, lots of traffic. Just be careful and all that stuff. So make sure if you ever get the payment standards, you are also looking up the utility allowances, and you're subsequently, depending on your property type, especially if you're a duplex or a single family home, you're subtracting the amount from the payment standards that for any utilities that you are not providing yourself. All right. Amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And that's it. This is why we do this every single day. We purposely analyze deals together. We get better every single day. We get better as a community. And that's all I'm asking for. If you ever wanted to think about getting more practice, just copy my homework. Analyze the same deals I'm analyzing today using the same spreadsheet. And frankly, the whole point is for you to find one part we can explain it better than I did. Say it somewhere that makes a little bit more sense, that's a little bit more clear, a little bit slower maybe, because sometimes I know I talk a little fast. So that's why I do this, so that we can all get better and improve. And just remember, all it takes is 18 minutes a day for 1 year, and you'll be better at analyzing deals than 95% of the world. And we keep it really straightforward. We're only covering long-term rental Section 8, which is really, really straightforward. There does not need to be a mentorship in here, but be wary for those people that teaches you to underwrite without any CapEx or without any maintenance. Please use some common sense and don't believe those folks. So have an amazing Wednesday, everybody. I hope you guys are able to spend some quality time with your family and friends today. And I'll be back here again tomorrow for day 215. Have a good one. Talk to you later.